Hello, my name is Reagan Blackburn. I'm a junior here at East Carolina University, and I'm talking to the director of the visit today, Kimille Howard. You can come see the visit at McGinnis Auditorium from September 29th to October 3rd. So, as the director of the visit, what caused you to want to start directing in the first place? You know, has it been something that you've always wanted to do? Was it, acting first and then directing, or just always directing?
So growing up, I was a dancer. From like the age of 3, I was a part of the Jordan College Academy of Dance, which no longer exists, but was a part of Butler University. And so I, would take like upwards of like 9 classes per week. I was like, it was pretty hardcore.
Wow.
Different dance, ballet, tap, jazz, modern, flamenco, and whatnot. And every year we would perform at what is called Clues Hall, which is a big performance space on Butler University's campus. And when I was, I don't know, like maybe like 10 or 11, something like that, for the tap performance, we were doing dances to West Side Story music. And so my parents bought the Laserdisc. I don't know if anybody watching knows what a Laserdisc is, but it's like a record player sized DVD. That you have to watch on both sides of West Side Story. And I was like, oh my God, I can do that. Like, I loved it, and I was really excited. And I mean, I had grown up watching old Rodgers and Hammerstein movies with my mom too, but it was really that West Side Story that was a catalyst for me, and it made me want to be a performer for, like an actor, singer, dancer for the screen and stage. And so I started to pursue that more fervently moving forward. So acting in shows in high school, and just consuming a lot of movies, and I learned about Woody Allen, and I was like, oh, I want to do what he does, where he directs, writes, and acts in his own films. So I had always wanted to direct for film. Well, I shouldn't say always, but like by that point, by high school. And then when I went to school to college at Loyola University, I focused on acting for the stage and directing for the screen. And we had to take a directing class for our degree for the stage, and I fell in love with directing stage work. I did a scene from Quills by Doug Wright. Also, during my time at university, the same people tended to get cast again and again, which I thought was shortchanging everybody who paid the same tuition to be there. So I thought, like, if I'm the director, then I get to choose what play it is or who's getting cast. And I didn't want to have to wait to be chosen, although you have to be chosen to be a director too. So, spoiler alert, you still have to do all that auditioning of sorts. But anyway, I wanted to be more at the helm of the narratives rather than a facet of the narratives. So that was sort of my inspiration, so that I could be a catalyst for more diversification on stage.
Yeah, definitely. No, I 100% agree with everything. I know that was a similar choice for me, kind of going more the production route of side of things. So what drew you to this play, either just as, a person watching it, as a director? What about the visit made you want to do it?
They did it while I was at my university, and I fell in love with the play. I thought it was so fascinating, and it asked some very complicated questions about society and justice, morality, and community. And it was right from the moment I saw it, it was on my bucket list to do. And I didn't know when or how I was going to do it, because once I got to New York and saw that mostly only plays with 6 characters or less get produced, I was like, well, I don't know if I'm ever going to get to do this, so I'll just love it and think about it, but then, we'll see.
Right.
But then when the opportunity arose to work here at ECU, I was like, well, you want to cast as many students as possible and give them as many people an opportunity and an education as you can. So I was like, well, maybe I could do this play, because it has like 40 plus characters in it.
It really does.
So and it turned out to be I wouldn't say serendipitous, fate.
Yes.
That I would.
Definitely. It's like, saw it in college, and now you're getting to do it on a college campus. It really is like a full circle moment.
Absolutely.
So, do you have a particular favorite line or scene or character from the show? Is there just a certain element that maybe you're drawn to?
Oh gosh, I mean, it's hard to choose a favorite. There's so many great characters, and like characters I didn't even know I loved until working on the show with the actors here. I would say, I mean, is it too much of a cliche to say that I really love Claire?
I don't think so. I think she's a great character.
Yeah, I just think that she's so complex and right, but also, like, I mean, there's problems associated with her attempt, but at the end of the day, I'm like advocating for her getting what she wants. I also, it's been really great work with the actors and finding the nuance of these characters, and so I feel empathy for Anton that I didn't necessarily feel on stage, because I think the actor Andrew has found this, like the way he's portraying the character makes me feel for him, despite all of the horrible things he's done. Yeah. So I'm like, oh gosh, I really don't want him to die, which is, I don't necessarily feel when reading the play, which is great, because, and hopefully it'll mean that the audience will feel complicated about it as well. I'm not choosing one favorite. I mean, I really love Kobe and Lovie.
They are definitely, the first time that I heard them, just like, I think even at the read through, I just could not stop laughing. They're such interesting characters.
Yeah, and I miss them in Act 2 and 3. You know, it's sort of like they speak for the final time at the end of Act 1, and it's so interesting that we don't really get to experience much of Claire's entourage after the big plot twist, or I guess you would say at the end of first act. So. Yeah, I mean, I have a love for all of the characters, I think, too, just because, like, how the actors in our company have brought them to life, have added aspects to these characters that have just made them all favorites for me. Right. I guess that's probably too easy of an answer, but, like, yeah.
Well, I think one thing, too, especially about this production, is with a lot of the, characters that would maybe have the one lines or two lines, but with the way that they are kind of incorporated into these big scenes, they have these personalities, and that even for me, just being in the rehearsal process, when I have to miss a day and I come back and it's like this another character, an element to them has been brought to life, and I'm just like, in another show, in another world, another director, they would have just kind of been pushed to the side, and I think it really causes them to be brought to life, and are definitely some favorites of mine, for sure.
It was important to me that everybody feel like they're an integral part of the storytelling, and so I never wanted any character or actor to be like a one-off, like we see them walk on for one scene and then like we don't see them again until bows, because I think it is important to establish this world through the teeming life that would be in a town, and so they are. We do see them throughout the whole play, regardless of how many lines they have, and I think this play has an operatic scope, and it's like the way that I'm staging it is similar to opera, where the tertiary or even nonverbal characters are seen throughout and ad-lib and create the ambient sound of the world.
No, definitely. I love it, absolutely. Do you have any advice for young creatives, whether they be ECU students or just at large? I mean, you've had all this experience and you've done all these things, and I know for us, especially in the world of COVID and just not really knowing what's going to come next, do you have any advice?
I think it's like one of the big important takeaways for young artists is to not wait for opportunities to come your way. Create opportunities for yourself, especially if you're a student at a university and you have access to so many resources and so many people. Spend time getting insight from your professors who've had experience in the professional world, or ask them if they can connect you with people that you admire in the professional world, so that you can have coffee dates, or shadow some professionals, and coordinate readings and workshops and write your own things, be constantly reading plays, try to be as connected as possible with the pulse of what's happening in the industry so that it's not all brand new to you when you come out of school or whatever, studies you were doing. I think don't wait until you have your diploma to start being active in doing the research and building those connections. This is the prime time now where you perhaps, I know some students they have to have side jobs, or work study or other responsibilities or double majors, but it gets so much harder to find the time once you're out of school, and then also you have to pay for more things when you're out of school. Yes. So I hate to say it, but one of the benefits of having all of these peers in school is you don't have to pay them to do a reading. Yes. I mean, you could, but I think everybody would be hungry to do things, or they should be hungry. If you're not hungry to do more above and beyond what is expected in school, then it sounds like you probably won't stay here. Yeah. I mean, and that's one of the big things too, is this is a hard industry. There's no guarantee of big salaries or continuous work. There are going to be lulls. It happens to everyone for the most part. So it is important that this is the only thing that you could possibly do in your life. You can only see yourself doing this. Mm-hmm. That's something that I've always been told. When I was coming, I'm still coming. I feel like I'm not there yet. But if you can be doing anything else, if you can imagine yourself doing anything else besides this, working in this industry, then do that, because it is hard. It involves so much hustle. It's nonstop, and I can't tell you when it starts to calm down, because it hasn't calmed down for me. And it's one day I'll sleep. Obviously it's important to find a work-life balance, but it's really hard in the beginning and the middle, and I can't tell you about the end yet. But there's a lot of great things about this career path, but there's a lot of really challenging things, and that's something that that people aren't always prepared for coming out of the academic environment. So taking advantage of the ways you can prepare yourself now, saving up I talked to an actor friend who said he highly recommends saving up 6 months worth of rent, so that if you want to go pursue acting and auditioning in New York, you can focus on it without having to have the side jobs dominate your time. So if you have imagine having 6 months of time to just audition, take classes, network, do some unpaid stuff that can just beef up your resume. Mm-hmm. But if you have to fill your time with temping and serving, which is a part of it, it does take longer. It can be harder. Or I was telling cast members the other day, or cast the other day, go to New York on spring break this summer before you graduate, if you can, and audition then. I remember Corey Cott, who was in Newsies. He was the replacement for Jeremy Jordan on Newsies. He got cast in Newsies before he graduated. Wow. Yeah.
I know that there's a couple people that I know that, and it's just so crazy. I think because I'm a junior, 20 years old, and I think it's insane to think of that. But it's such a great tip just to go ahead and get some of that experience, even if it doesn't lead to necessarily an opportunity. Any experience is good, because it only just makes you better in that sort of that stance,
And there's more than just, most people in this industry do more than one thing. So yes, you may be an actor, but you might also have to self-produce, or you may want to write the stories you want to tell on stage, or you might have to get into casting, or having experience and exposure in all different facets of the industry can only help you. Connections I made through volunteering at galas have led to jobs. You just never know what a connection could lead to. It took somebody, I was just telling the cast yesterday, somebody I met while volunteering at the Drama League Gala in 2013 recommended me as a possible assistant director to Des McAnuff in 2016, and that was how I got my first Broadway show.
Wow.
Yeah. So you just never know.
No, that's crazy. And it's something that you just don't even think about, it's just, it can lead to something so incredible.
In this industry, it's about who knows you, not about who you know.
Yeah, definitely. So another thing that I know that we've talked about throughout the process is the setting. So in the script, it kind of has this tone of like it's set in Central Europe, anything like that, and then there's stuff with the playwright where he was, in Switzerland and everything like that. So I guess, what was your thought process behind, 1950s West Germany? Was there, because definitely the script alludes to that, but it's still obviously a choice. And so I guess kind of what was the thought process behind that?
Well, I think that, I think we would have had to change a lot of the script if we were to place it anywhere else, which is totally, or, we would go outside of the reality of time that we know of. But I think I love European settings, so I was like, I'm always already drawn to the play for the nature of that. But the 1950s is after, I think it's complicated if we were to set it during any of the world wars, because like everybody would seem very out of touch with what's going on in the world. And so I think 1955 is about, like the 1955 is about the time that it was originally intended to be set. Because in the original German translation, I think it was 1905 was when she left, and in the original play, she was gone for 40 years?
Wow.
Something like that, yeah. So, I didn't find that out till like last week, so that had no bearing on my choice. It was really about trying to avoid any problematic political times. We're still dealing with the Cold War here, but I think that's before the Berlin Wall went up, so that's why I specifically set it at that time. And also, there are things in the play like radios, and what else? They have I guess telephones have been around for a while, but like not the type where you need an operator or something. So I think it needed to be in a time period where that technology would exist. So it wouldn't have made sense to set it much later, and then any earlier, we're getting into really problematic. Sorry. Earlier? Would that be? I'm getting my time.
So if it was earlier, you'd have to deal with like World War II,
right?
And everything that brought. In which like no part of Germany pretty much was like untouched by that. And then if you go any later, it's like the Berlin Wall, the Cold War. Yeah, the 50s definitely, it's a nice sweet spot of just kind of like, it's that period of transition. And,
and also you could have, I think you could have a little bit of fun with the costumes when they start to upgrade, you know? And also still have like that elegance that we have Claire in for her costumes wouldn't feel out of time, I think.
Right. Yeah, I'm definitely excited to see the costumes for sure with all the upgrades and everything. It's nice to picture it in my head, but I'm excited to see it. So this is your first time directing at ACU, correct? Great. So what makes this university, or even just this town, different than other places that you've directed? Maybe the students, anything regarding that?
Well, I've never done anything. I've never directed or worked on anything in the South. So it's weird because I never really, I know North Carolina is a part of the South, but it's so far up. I'm just like, where is this? So there's not much north if we go much higher,
right?
So that's the first thing. I've never directed on a campus before. I directed for Western Connecticut State University via Zoom, and that was all done via film. So it's nice to get away from New York and be able to just focus on a project and not have to bounce around so much all over the city to different meetings and things. It's if I have any meetings, it has to be over the phone or via Zoom for anything happening elsewhere. So it's like a nice escape, and it's nice to also be in a place that doesn't have so much. There's not a lot of busy hecticness outside of the town. So I don't feel any, I guess, FOMO of I gotta go see all these things or do all this stuff. I can just you know, focus on the play and like
yeah.
breathe when I'm not working on it, you know.
Right.
But it's just been really exciting to work with students in the room and come at it from a place of, I guess, education, or like just helping shepherd them, guide them, and shape them as budding artists. So, you know, and like trying to break some of the, what would you say, stereotypes or things that we perceive about what it goes into a process or like directing styles. You know, I'm the type of director who likes to like ask questions and like have prompt the actor to make the discoveries, or like we do make as a team, you know, rather than just like saying you do this, you do that, you go there, you know, I think there's not as much learning in there if you like tell them to do it. You know, I mean, when I need to, I step in and tell them, but like, you know, it's a collaborative process, and I'm like, that's what it's like 9 times out of 10 ideally, and when you get into the professional world, that it is a collaborative process. So it's nice to be able to give that perspective to the students.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's great. I mean, as speaking as a student, as somebody that, you know, I work with the students a lot, I go to classes with them and everything like that, I know that we all really appreciate, I think, just always having different perspectives and different directing styles, and you know, it's always super beneficial, and I think this one is even more beneficial than I think any of us thought it would be, just because of the way that it is very collaborative, and you really do have to think about these choices and the time, and you really are relying on your fellow actor as well, and I think that that's super important, and I think that, you know, speaking on behalf of all the students, that we're very, very thankful for this opportunity to get to work with you and to get to learn from you, and just very, very thank you very, very much. And that kind of leads me to my last question. So where can we see you next? Do you have any plans for after this? Take a break?
I don't know what a break is.
We don't.
Well, first of all, it's a pleasure to be collaborating with all of you students. It's been an absolute joy. I am going, like, right after closing, I start at the Metropolitan Opera. I'm an assistant stage directing for the Porgy and Brett Bess, and then Tosca, also at the Met, and directing, and I have a few little side things. I'm also directing a virtual opera, Night Trip by Sandra Seaton. That's going to be, doing that with Opera Next Gen. A couple of readings and workshop things. I'm directing a William Grant Still opera at IU Opera in Bloomington, Indiana in January, and then I'm coming back to the Metropolitan Opera to do Tosca again, and then I'm directing a new opera called Quamino's Map at Chicago Opera Theater in Chicago. I'm workshopping a new musical in New York. Teaching like some class stuff. I'm busy.
Busy, yes. I was like, that's like the general consensus. It's just busy, you know. Like, that's how it is sometimes. It's nice to stay busy, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, this is like been one of the first years, which has been nice, where I'm like solidly. Well, I shouldn't say solidly. There are some pockets where I can maybe read the seat, maybe fill this something up. But like, I think that's the goal for every artist, right? Is to ultimately have a full season.
Yeah.
And I will say, like, this is the first year where I've had, well, I should say the pandemic year I was really busy too, constantly with virtual work. But like, this is the first in-person season where I've been like, oh, I know exactly what I'm doing for the entire year. I don't have to worry about like filling my time or finding sources of income, and like, it took many years and a lot of hustling to get here, but like, so that's another thing that young artists have to be prepared for. It's like, it's sometimes years are gonna be thin, and sometimes you're gonna be booked and blessed. But like, it's not like an office job where you're guaranteed work until you retire or quit, you know? So it's all, so, Yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. I've enjoyed doing this. But yeah.
Thank you for having me.
No problem.
I hope I answered your questions well.
You did.
Okay, cool.